Hello guys. We were cold in the Middle Ages and burned in the Wild West. Now, we're maximizing the difficulty level. Imagine, what would your life be like if you were born as an Eskimo amidst the eternal glaciers of the Arctic? No town, no lord. Just -50 degrees, cold, seals, and polar bears. Let's jump into a time machine and simulate my life in this white hell. Don't forget to like the video, and I truly enjoy reading your own what-if comments. For me, the story began not in a warm bed, but in an igloo made of snow and ice. The moment I was born, the cold air surrounding me taught me that the only rule of survival was warmth and fat. For me, history wasn't calendars, but hunting seasons. We needed neither money nor a lord. Everything came from the body of the animal our community hunted. My world was so harsh that even a peasant from the Middle Ages couldn't imagine it, because here you couldn't farm or raise a cow. Life was made up only of the sea and ice. My home, as my father taught me, would be built quickly from snow blocks. The igloo was temporary, because we had to follow the game animals. While it was -40 degrees outside, the inside of the igloo could rise up to 0 degrees Celsius with just the heat from an oil lamp cudlick. This was a miracle. The most important building material for me was a strong block of snow. Our permanent homes were made of stone and bone, but still covered with snow. Instead of today's luxury concrete homes, my life was all about the art of managing the snow and icy air that nature offered me. Clothing was not a style choice for me. It was life insurance. The rags of the Middle Ages or the rough wool of the West were useless. My mother sewed two-layered garments from seal and caribou skins, keeping the fur on the inside and the hide on the outside. This double-layer system was the only thing that retained my body heat but vented moisture when I sweated. If my clothes got wet, it meant instant death for me. That's why I treated my clothes like sacred relics. My mother was not a tailor, but a survival expert. Her sewing ability determined the existence of our community. For me, food was not just sustenance. It was a source of energy and heat. There was no bread like in the Wild West or gruel like in the Middle Ages in my world. My diet consisted entirely of protein and fat, seal blubber, whale blubber, raw meat. My body constantly needed high-calorie fat fuel to survive in this extreme cold. Vitamin C. We got that from the liver of the raw meat we hunted. Modern nutritionists would be shocked, but this fatty diet was my only secret to survival. The food culture was focused solely on utilizing the hunted animal in the most efficient way. The sole purpose of my life was hunting. There was neither the Lord's field nor a gold mine. Seal, walrus, whale, and caribou. For me, these were not just food, but also clothing, heat, and tools. Hunting was more than a sport, it was a ritual. I had to show respect to the animal spirit, because that spirit would return to us in the next hunt. Hunting meant silence, patience, and understanding the language of nature. If the hunt failed, the entire community would starve. My greatest achievement in life was being able to wait motionless for hours by a seal, breathing whole and plunging the harpoon at the exact right moment. For me, transportation wasn't done with horses or wheeled wagons, but with dog sleds. My dogs were my most valuable possessions. They were my companions. Without them, hunting for food, migrating, and surviving was impossible. Feeding them was hard, but their loyalty and endurance were boundless. Traveling by sled was both challenging and dangerous. Sometimes we'd be caught in snowstorms lasting for days, and our only shelter would be a small snow shield we could quickly build. For me, a dog sled was not just a vehicle, but also a symbol of hope for survival on the icy sea. The sea, as much as the land, was my main route and hunting ground. The vessels we used to move on the sea were the kayak, a single-person boat, or the larger umiak, the communal boat. These were skillfully made from the skins and skeletal bones of the animals we hunted. Hunting in a kayak required complete mastery. Falling into the cold waters meant instant paralysis and death. My full attention had to be on the slightest ripples on the water. For me, the sea was like a god, both giving life and harboring endless dangers. Kayaking was not just about hunting, it was about understanding the rhythm of nature. In my world, spirits were everywhere. The spirits of the game animals, the spirits of the deceased ancestors, and the spirits of the sea. A successful hunt was not just skill, but the grace of the spirits. One of the most important figures in our community was the shaman, Anjakuk. The shaman was the only one who spoke with the spirit world, healed illnesses, and could predict when the hunt would be successful. We obeyed his power and wisdom absolutely. For me, life was more the dance of spiritual powers than physical reality. If you offended the spirits, it meant both hunger and disaster. My life was not made up of days and nights, as the modern person knows. There was the eternal night, composed lasting for months in winter, and the eternal day midnight sun lasting for months in summer. The eternal night was the hardest time. Hunting was extremely difficult, and the community struggled with depression and the feeling of being trapped by the winter. The eternal day, however, was a time of exhilaration, as we had plenty of light for hunting and preparation. My rhythm of life was not adjusted to the sun's daily cycle like in the West, but to these grand, monthly cycles. The absence of night and day changed even our concept of time. For us, the community was everything. Individualism, like in the Wild West, meant quick death here. Without the community, survival was impossible. When the hunt was successful, everything was shared fairly. Wealth was measured not by how much seal oil you had, but by how much you were willing to share. Greed meant the end of the community. If someone couldn't hunt, the others would help them. This solidarity was the cornerstone of our culture and our survival system. My security was directly linked to how strong and generous my neighbor was. Metal was rare and very valuable in my world. All our tools were made from the bones and ivory of the animals we hunted. The hunting harpoon, the snow knife ulu, and needles made of bone, ... These tools were not just simple instruments, they were works of art. Making a bone spearhead was one of the most important skills my father taught me. Sometimes we would experience famine lasting for days. Famine meant not just a lack of food, but also despair. That's why protecting our tools and valuing every material was a sacred duty for me. Our history consisted not of written books, but of oral stories and legends. The tales of great hunters, shamans who spoke with spirits, and the sea goddess Sedna. For me, these were not just stories, they were survival guides. These tales told us how to respect nature and how to live. The elders of the community were the living libraries of knowledge and history. Their words were the only law in my world. On cold winter nights, we would gather inside the igloo and listen to these stories. This ensured the continuity of our identity and culture. In my culture, women were not just childbearers, but the source of life and practical experts. While the man hunted, the woman processed the animal hides, made tools from bones, and sewed the clothing. A woman ensured that the hunt was not wasted and that the community stayed warm. The skill of sewing was as vital as a man's ability to use a harpoon. As an Eskimo man, my wife's sewing skill directly affected my survival. In my world, women had equal respect with men. The roles were different, but each role was essential for existence. My childhood was spent not in a traditional school, but on the ice and alongside the hunters. My education consisted of observation and imitation. My father would silently show me how to hold a harpoon, and my mother would show me how to process the hides. Making mistakes here was the best way to learn, because a mistake meant an immediate lesson. Literacy was meaningless to me. What I needed to learn was how to distinguish 20 different shades of snow and recognize a seal's breathing hole. For me, knowledge was gained directly from nature, not from a book. Among all the game animals, the polar bear was the creature I respected and feared the most. It was both a powerful prey and an enemy that could instantly end my life. Encountering a polar bear meant an unavoidable fight. When we successfully hunted one, we showed special respect to its spirit. We saw it as an equal hunter, sometimes even a spiritual guide. The fear I felt for this animal made me a more careful and more masterful hunter. For me, the polar bear was the embodiment of nature's brutal and supreme power. For us, the weather wasn't just a daily forecast. It was life itself. The slightest change in the wind's direction determined whether a hunt would be successful or not. Learning to read the weather, understanding what the clouds and wind were telling us, was more important than hunting itself. But in recent years, the ice has begun to change. The reliable ice paths we once knew are now dangerous and fragile. This change created the greatest fear in my world. If the ice melts, my culture and my way of life would also melt away. The greatest danger in my world was the cold, but the second greatest danger was sickness. Traditionally, shamans and natural healers would cure us, but diseases brought from the outside by European traders were fatal to our community. Our immune systems were defenseless against these new microbes. Even a simple flu could lead to the weakening of the entire community. For me, healing meant the healing of the spirit, not just the body. Shamans would try to appease the spirits to drive the illness away. We were unprepared for the new enemies we couldn't see, which were always with us. For me, the refrigerator was nature itself. We needed neither salt nor modern methods to store our food. We simply used the snow and ice itself. We would wrap the meat we hunted in bones and bury it under the ice. These natural freezers would keep our food fresh for months. However, our ability to find food allowed us to access fresh and vital nutrients in the middle of winter. Not wasting food was a sacred rule. Every hunt meant security for the community until the next migration. Between months of hunting and preparation, there were times we dedicated to ourselves, especially during the long winter nights. During these rest periods, our community engaged in art, bone and ivory carving, storytelling, and music with drums. This art helped us forget the hardships in our lives. Our carving art consisted of making small sculptures that honored the spirits of the animals we hunted. This was a part of my spirituality and culture. For me, art was not just an entertainment, but also an expression of our struggle with the harsh nature. Throughout my life, I had only heard stories of the outside world until that large wooden ship appeared on the horizon. The arrivals didn't wear furs like us, and they carried strange objects made of metal, unlike our bone tools. Everything they brought, trifles, tobacco, sugar, permanently changed our way of life. Some thought the new tools would make our lives easier, while others feared these strangers brought evil spirits with them. This first contact was a turning point for my community. We now had to defend ourselves, not only against nature, but also against an unknown civilization. So that was my cold and spiritual lives among the Arctic glaciers. After the filth of the Middle Ages and the dust of the Wild West, surviving here required a totally different kind of resilience. After this journey, I understood how much we appreciate our heating systems, market shelves, and hot coffee. Which brutal era should we visit in our next video? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this alternate history journey, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video. See you in the next adventure. Take care.